It's Zarek from Real Chiropractic Dynamics, and today I'm joined by Dr. Ken Cooper. How are you, Ken?
Good. And yourself?
I'm great. Thank you for taking the time over there in America to come and talk to me. So what we're going to be talking about today is I explained this to Ken off camera. I have this dilemma at the moment. I'm a young guy. I'm single, but I'm going to graduate soon. And part of my mind is on, okay, I want to start a family, have children, have a practice that gives me the freedom to be with the family. And then there's another part of my personality that I find really tempting that I'm like, I just want to go volume and just see like how high can I go and really push myself and dedicate myself 100% to it. So Ken was just giving me some advice on that, and we thought we'd hit record. So you and I first met on the Sigafoose Weekly Facebook group, and we're both quite prominent on that. And just off camera, I said, "Do you have any stories about Sig?" Because he's been a great influence on me, but I never met the guy. So I love hearing the stories about him. If you'd like to share that, Ken.
Yeah. What I was sharing with you is there's when I was a younger student and a brand new doctor, I sat in a bunch of seminars. Every place he would show up, I would be there if he was anywhere near me, and I would spend time listening and trying to absorb and such like that. I introduced myself, more than once, and it was always a situation where, as a young doctor, I didn't get it. So I mean, we were struggling, and it was a big deal that I even got to listen to him. There was no way that I could see myself affording to be able to go out to the gathering or anything like that. So, I remember it being a major decision to actually buy one of Sigafoose's books. And at the time, it was Wisdom from Sigafoose. And, we're talking about a $30 book at the time. And it was something that my wife and I actually discussed, like we were discussing buying a house as to whether or not we could afford to buy this thing and everything. And we bit the bullet. And the thing is that, $30 bought me, this, I've got the book here, it's The Wisdom from Sigafoose, the original one.
It's
I don't
signed.
know if you can actually see the inkjet lines on the front. This was printed on an inkjet printer. And yes, it is signed by Doc. Sig has got a signature there, the keep on keeping on, like usual. And
I don't know what inkjet means, but I'm gonna assume
that's exactly it. It was before laser, and it's kind of an embarrassing printer compared to today's pages, but it had all of his stuff in it, and just one-liners, short excerpts and such like that. Luckily, Carrie's been kind enough to digitize that, so we don't have to go through that there, but it's out there. But $30 for a Xerox inkjet printed book.
that was a serious financial decision back in the day.
Financial decision, very much so. And I do remember it. But the thing is it had such an impact. Just getting that, I remember him signing it. It's like it's yesterday. I can see him. I can see the discussion we had. That type of thing. And the thing that kills me knowing what I know now is that if I would have just reached out to him, I know without a doubt now that he would have made a way for me to get there. But I couldn't. Again, we're talking about ego real quickly, things like that as far as volume. This was where my ego was stuck, is that I couldn't ask for that help. And I figured, if I couldn't figure it out myself, I'd just be wasting his time, showing up at his doorstep type of thing.
Right.
That was stupid. That was just simply stupid. That's what he wanted, was to help. He figured it out. He started off in such a way that, we're in a position now that we've got a lot of those greats that are gone, but they shared with us. And so we should be sharing with the students. We should be sharing with the interns. And, that's a big deal. That's the reason why, I've committed to writing on SIG twice a week, is to at least share something, give back to our community as far as chiropractic. It's a big deal.
Yeah, I made that mistake one time when I was quite young, maybe 19. I was involved in a business competition. This was before I discovered chiropractic. And it was, you guys have The Apprentice over there, yeah? Well,
Yep.
yeah, you remember that. You elected him
Yep.
president. But yeah, that, well, maybe not you personally, but yeah, your country. So this was like a small, my local town's version of The Apprentice, and I won it. I won this competition, and part of the thing that you won was there was this guy. He's a business mogul in my town. I think he owns like a energy company or something like this. And part of the prize was that he would go out to lunch with you. He was going to take you for lunch and give you a ride in his Ferrari and give you some career advice, like mentor you a little bit. And I always had that mindset. I was like, oh, he's too busy to help me. Like he wouldn't be interested in helping me. And now at the age of 27, I mean, it all worked out okay because I found chiropractic and I found plenty of good mentors now. But I kick myself now for that would have been so cool for a 19-year-old to sit with that guy and say, what are you thinking about? You know?
Imagine the jump you would have had being able to do that, just taking in at 19 years old that information. That's a big deal. And it's the same thing in chiropractic and what I experienced, unlike, those coming through now, we still have some of the greats around. But the big guys, you've the Dr. Barges, the Sid Williams, the Sigafoose, the Joe Felicias, those guys, Reggie Gold. Reggie Gold is a big one in Europe too, here in America as well. Those guys, thank God someone figured out just to press play while they were talking, because at least we can actually refer back to that information that they can still teach us. But I would love to see, new greats come up too. I would love to see, our students become more than we ever dreamed we could be. I feel like, when BJ said that he gives us a sacred trust, he passes the torch to us. It's not just to keep it alive, but we really should make it brighter. We should feed that. We should definitely move our profession forward. And moving our profession forward does not mean abandoning our original principles. That's a big thing there, that everyone thinks that forward movement means that you've got to abandon yesterday. And that's not the case. It's being able to take what we've learned yesterday and apply it to today and explain it better, to utilize it better, apply it better than we did the day before. And you asked me, what would be the thing that I would tell a student, the big thing. And I keep coming back to this one point. And I tell this honestly to not even just chiropractic students. I tell this to any student, to anybody going into a profession, is that if you're committing your life to that profession, fall in love with it. You've got to fall in love with it. It has to be your passion. Just like just like my wife. I've been with her. She's put up with me for almost 33 years. She's been around and putting up with my crap. Yeah, I adore that woman. But that's the type of feeling you got to have for chiropractic. Chiropractic is a living, breathing entity, and we do so much that if you're not completely in it, then you're really not only doing yourself a disservice, but you're doing your patients a disservice too. And the funny thing is talking about your volume aspect, volume to family. Where do you find volume?
That ties in beautifully to why I wanted to talk about this with you, because you've just said how you have a successful practice, but you also have a really successful family life, and you've managed to merge the two. So maybe you want to share some thoughts on that.
Yeah, that whole thing, when the family came first. I approached my wife when I decided to ask her to marry me. I approached my wife from the standpoint of, I was getting married once. I had already made up my mind. If this thing didn't work out, this marriage thing didn't work out, I wasn't trying for 2 and 3. I would officially say screw it, and then we would move on, and I would be single the rest of my life. Wasn't going to play the game that I saw my parents play, that I've seen so many of my friends' parents play, and that type of thing. I despise the concept of divorce. I don't fault people for getting divorced, because of course there are definitely circumstances. My parents definitely needed to be divorced. They definitely did. But in the same breath, that was not going to be what I was going to do. I was serious enough that I was going to commit to this woman wholeheartedly without holding anything back whatsoever. I'm in it. And if it doesn't work out, then it's not because I didn't commit to it. I feel that honestly that same way about chiropractic. When I decided to become a chiropractor, it wasn't later in life, but I had already had a 7-year career as a hospital corpsman in medicine, in the Navy. So I got out of the Navy and went directly into chiropractic. And so getting into chiropractic, I mean, before that, I wanted to become, I had studied design as far as architecture and graphics and things like that. I thought about opening up a flower shop. I was going to be a florist. There's a bunch of things. I studied Japanese, flower arranging and things like that when I was stationed in Japan. But I decided once we made that call that, okay, we're going to do this chiropractic thing, that I was in it for the long haul. We're not going to just, well, let's try it, see if it works. I mean, it sounds like a good paycheck, type of thing.
You had to burn the boats.
If you approach it that way, yeah, it's not going to work that way if you approach it from there. So it really does, it does pay off to approach your chiropractic career in the same way you would a personal relationship.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about that before we hit record, how you'd never been single and high volume, but you're a good person to talk to about having the family life and being a high volume.
Right. And it's there's no reason why you can't be both.
Right.
They're not
separated. That's the conflict in my mind at the moment, because in my mind I've kind of said, it's either one or the other. Sure, you can still see some volume and have a family life, but to get to that high level, I'm not convinced.
Yeah, I honestly think you can. I don't see why there's a reason. If you look at Sig, just using him for an example, because I have never heard of anybody doing 2,000 adjustments in one day. Dude did 2,000 in one day. So you could literally work one day and spend the other 6 with your family, if you were pulling that type of volume. So, no, I'm not there, but I do have the flexibility at this point to be able to take a week or 2 off for vacation. Like my wife and I went to Maui end of February for 2 weeks. So that was the longest we have ever left the practice since I've been in practice. And it's taken me that long to get the confidence to recognize that I've built something here that I don't have to worry about people just leaving and not coming back if I'm not there for a vacation. That's a quick way to burn out real fast if you don't take that time, and if you don't teach your people that you will be back and it's okay, you can survive without me for a week, but I honestly think a lot of that comes from the commitment that you give them while you're here too. So, the whole concept of work hard, play hard, that applies here. You're in the office, you're doing it. But I will admit too that, again, my wife we come up with an idea, we're out and about spending time together. We'll talk about the idea even then, and we'll remember it and put it into action once we get back to the office. Honestly, some of the best ideas come from when we're out playing. So.
And if you could go back to that seminar when you were with Sig and you're a young man again, and you can give yourself some advice going forward, advice on building your relationship, building your family, or advice on building your practice and integrating the two as well.
The biggest one is to have faith in yourself, to recognize that you have been taught what you need and that there are people out there to help you refine those skills. And don't hesitate to ask them what they think, to be able to reach out and communicate with them, because the best ones out there are dying to share with you. They're dying to share with anybody who will listen in the profession that maybe, just maybe, we can do something bigger with our profession instead of bringing it down to just another form of physical therapy. You know, we have so much more to offer, and we're going to forget that if we don't continue to pass that down to the next level, to the next level, and to the next level, next generation. But the next generation has to be willing to step up and ask for it too.
Right. And regarding the marriage?
Oh, the marriage, definitely. Same thing. Commit wholly to it. You know, you find that person that you can't live without, and don't give yourself an easy out. Don't give yourself a easy way to hit the eject button. You know, that recognize that, yeah, there's going to be rough times, just like in practice, just like in life, but anything can be worked through. You know, so as long as you both are on the same page there, again, law of agreement, you know, see it, visualize it, and bring it into this reality.
And you said as well to make sure to pick a partner that's just as in it as you are, even if they're not a chiropractor.
Oh yeah, you know, that's one thing that we talked about too, is that, you know, with all of these different seminars, my wife has been there. You know, she sat in the SIG seminars. She sat with me to listen to Dr. Sid and Dr. Barge. You know, especially with the philosophy aspects. You know, she likes to hear that as much as I do. She gets a bit bored when we sit there and start going into the science and like that, but she still has been around so that I can actually go up and just download it to her so that I can process it through my brain. You know, she just nods her head at me and says, "Great, okay, you're good. Now go back to class." You know, that type of thing. But yeah, that's that philosophy. You know, when you look at lasting purpose, you know, that lasting purpose philosophy, it goes from, of course, the practice, but it goes into real life too. And like, I guess practice is real life, but into our private lives. You know, what's the difference between giving, loving, and serving when you're talking about chiropractic, or you're talking about your marriage, or you're talking about your children, or you're talking about the person that's at the supermarket? You know, it's still lasting purpose. It's still to give, to love, and to serve out of your own abundance without expecting anything in return. So you're not smiling at that person to get a smile back. You're smiling at that person to change them, to give them something that they can latch onto.
It's kind of like the adjustment as well. If you're doing the adjustment and you're like, oh, how much money am I going to make today? Am I going to be able to pay my bills? Or am I going to hit my target for this week? Then that adjustment's going to be pretty shitty. Yes, you can have that stuff in the background. You can put attention on that and think about it. But in the actual moment where you're with that person, you are with that person.
You got it. And what I would suggest in those moments is that when you're looking at the business aspect, do it outside of your adjusting hours. So you can do it at lunch. You can do it, you know, I get in here early in the morning before I get patients in here, at least a half hour, preferably about an hour, so that I can just get my mind right, so that I can get into where I'm going. If I have something to address at the office, I will, you know, I will do maintenance in the office usually after hours. I don't do it during the day unless my numbers start to drop. If my numbers start to drop, I will start to look for something to refocus myself into the office. And 9 times out of 10, I will have someone interrupt me in the middle of what I was trying to do. They'll just be a walk-in, that type of thing. So it's a matter of getting that mindset correct and then keeping it there. And like you said, you know, the more focused you are that the adjustment is more important in this office than anything else, the better that you're going to be in the adjustment, but also the better that you're going to be as far as your success levels as well. That's going to bring other people in. You know, we are going through a pandemic right now, of course, globally. Here in Michigan, there was the suggestion by the state organization for people to close and only see emergencies. I don't buy that. You know, I've been open the full time, regular hours, 100%. And the reason being is because I don't see, we were identified as chiropractors as essential to the healthcare. Right. And I agree with that, because When we're talking about immune function, which is going to be your best defense against any type of infection, not just this, COVID-19, but also purple spotted monkey disease, whatever you, come in contact with, the way you're going to fight that off is by a proper functioning immune system. The way the immune system functions is, of course, as you know, by a proper functioning nervous system. So if I stop adjusting my patients, what I'm telling them, in my mind at least, is that, you're on your own.
Yeah.
Hopefully you make it through. I'll see you on the other side. But I can't do that. We really had to have a bit of a discussion, that this could quickly turn into the early 1900s in America, where there were chiropractors going to jail for practicing.
Yeah.
And again, my wife and I had that discussion. And again, we decided that the patient's health was vitally important, and we could not lock our doors. We had to stay open. And this is not saying that any area that has been required to lock your doors was wrong for doing so.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
if you're not required to do
personal thing.
You got it. Yep, exactly. And here we were not required. And that's the thing, is that the state organization really misinterpreted what we were being told to do. Yes, I am in compliance with the CDC's requirements, for sanitization and keeping things all nice and clean. But there's no way I'm backing down. The best thing I can do for my people here is to adjust them, and that's the type of commitment you need in chiropractic. And that fun thing is that over the past 3 weeks, I have had more new patients show up and call and come in than I have had over the past 3 months. So, and I wasn't doing too bad before then, but this week alone, I think we're up to close to 10 new patients this week.
Nice.
Where people are closed.
If you don't mind me asking, whenever we're not in the middle of a global pandemic, what kind of numbers do you see?
Usually, I will see, and I'm still working on bringing my numbers up. So these are working numbers. You'll see I usually get somewhere between 3 and 5 new patients a week, and that's steady. That's the average. And I will see on my full days, I have 3 full days, and I have 2 half days that I work. So I work 5 days a week, but that's by my choice, not by necessity.
Yeah.
So that's what we like to do. We like to be available. On the full days, we're doing on the average of about 70 to 80 people a day on those days. And we'll see somewhere around 60 on a half day. So they're decent numbers. I have had days where, I'm seeing end up 109 on a full day. But I'll also preface that too, that you could easily see a lot more. I don't. And I do it, again, by choice because of my technique. I'm an instrument adjuster, mostly. So my technique is a little bit slower. So with each patient, a patient visit will be on the average of about 5 minutes. So if you're doing full spine, good old fashioned, the 2,000 a day Sigafoose adjusting, that's a different pace.
Yeah. I said whenever he was adjusting 2,000 a day, was he adjusting full spine, or was he just doing upper cervical at that time?
I don't know. That's something we're gonna have to ask Carrie. That's a good question. I'm not sure about that. I know when I was adjusting full spine that, we had my record was that in 3 hours time, I kicked out 90 patients. That was my big number day type of thing. And that was a lot of fun. I mean, I was rocking and rolling. But again, like I work a lot with pediatrics. So I work a lot with pregnant moms and kids. So you can't approach them full aggression and at that speed. You've got to give them time to be able to adapt to you, and you've got to be willing to slow your pace down and just have this. My office is much more Zenish, if you will. It's not huge high energy off the walls. Woo! It's very much, we try and set the tone here where someone walks through the door, the first thing they usually do is go,
Oh, yeah.
and relax. You already start that setting up for the adjustment as they walk through the door. So,
Well, maybe that's where our personalities and our value systems then would differ, because for me, when I go into an office, some of them I go in and you feel a bit more relaxed. For me, I like going into the high energy places, which would be more
yep.
conducive maybe to a higher volume. So that's something I need to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your personality too, because, if someone who is, a huge high energy, can't stop moving type of person tries to just do what I do, it's probably not going to work as well for them because it doesn't match who they are. I am very much, a supporter of your office has to reflect who you are. As you see, I wear a polo here. There are times when I wear a t-shirt. There are times when I really have gotten into wearing my Hawaiian shirts. I like those. One, I like the Hawaiian shirts. I like the feel of them, but they let me move and they're fun. And I work with kids.
Yeah,
So,
awesome.
You won't see me put on a white jacket in here. I do not wear slacks. I wear jeans. But again, I wear those for reasons because, again, I want to give that more relaxed feel to the patients coming in.
Yeah. And on the subject, again, going back to relationships, I had a conversation with someone the other day and they were like, Zarek, would you marry a chiropractor? And I sat and thought about it for a moment and I was like, I think if I'm going to see a lot of people and build that volume, I either have to marry a chiropractor or it would have to be a very, very understanding woman who gets it and gets the philosophy and is completely on board. Otherwise, it would be a nightmare.
Yep, I agree with that. If you're going to have a divisiveness in the house, that's going to really, really very much squelch how many people you could see, how much volume you can do. Because if she wants you home and you need to be at the office or you want to be at the office, you're not on the same page. The law of attraction is now, the law of agreement is now broken. So now you're going to just struggle with every single step. And that's not a way for either person to live. It's not just the chiropractor, but also the spouse. That's rough on them if they have a different view for the family than what you do. So, chiropractor, again, it would be, if you were going to marry a chiropractor, I kind of see it as you'd have to look at them in the same way as you would trying to hire a CA. You have to make sure that CA is 100% in line with your philosophy, because just because you're got two chiropractors in the same room does not mean that things line up as far as how they see things as being done or needing to be done. And the philosophies can be different. You can have one that's more principled, another one that is more I'm trying to think of a polite word.
Mechanistic.
Mechanistic. There you go. Good word. I like that. Yeah. Vitalistic versus mechanistic. We'll stay with the safe words. Perfect.
All right.
But yeah, very much so. Because just being a chiropractor can be the deciding factor. Can it work? Oh yeah. I know some chiropractors that have been married for a very, very long time that are doing great. But I also know that they are on the same page as well.
Yeah, so find one that's on the same page. So the next time I go on a first date, I'm going to bring a checklist with me and systematically go through it and mark it off.
Yeah, that's what I did. That's how I found mine. No, actually, mine was the first woman who looked at me and told me I was being an ass. So I kind of like that, from the standpoint that, she wasn't all doe-eyed over me and just fawning on me and like that she had no problem telling me exactly who I was and what type of person I was being at the time. And I like that a lot. She's a strong woman, and I really appreciate her because she's the one who can also look at me in the practice and call me out when I'm not doing it. It's kind of funny. If numbers start dropping, she will look at me. She will have no problem looking at me and going, I don't know what you're doing, but you need to stop that and do what you're supposed to. and most of the time she's right. Hands down, she doesn't even have to know if my mind's somewhere else. She sees it in the numbers. And as soon as I get my head straight again, boom, right back up again.
That's Really good. Having someone that's going to call you out on maybe your blind spots, or when
Yeah,
you're lying to yourself. I think when you have a big personality like I have or like you have, you'll tend to either be with either one of two people. The one is a more introverted, kind of almost submissive woman that just kind of submits
right.
to your energy and you can kind of walk all over them, or you're going to be with a really strong woman that's going to like match your energy. And I don't mean in
Yeah,
a conflict sense, but just like she's going to call you out on your shit and give you a little bit of
yeah,
hassle over that to get you back on track.
yeah, exactly. And it's all done truly out of love. That it's in a support mechanism instead of a I'm trying to put you in your place.
Yeah. Or win the conflict over you.
Right, right. I was going to say, and that's another thing the that the doctor has to be aware of too, or the person catching the flack, is to be able to accept that too, to recognize that there is validity in what the person's saying. So you need to stop and listen to it and check yourself. And when it's been called, you need to check yourself and correct as necessary.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking there, with that Sigafoose, we've kind of bonded over that because we're in that group and we talk a lot on there. But he had that same mentality. Like he would cut people down and really call them out on the nonsense things that we tell ourselves. And some people resonate with that, and they like that, they respect that, even if it hurts their feelings in the short term. It leads you to that long term outcome. Whereas some people do, they do want to be sugar coated a little bit, and when they encounter someone like that that does call them out and is a little bit rough with them, it can lead to conflict.
Right. Yeah, that is true. But we have a limited time on this earth, and we have a limited time that we are licensed in being able to take care of people. And these guys, which I'm not sure that we see as clearly as they did then, these guys, they recognized that they needed to get as far ahead as possible, as quickly as possible. They didn't have time to sugarcoat it or go the long way around the block, that it needed to be addressed now. These, like with me, for example, I when I first started actually doing Sigafoose, when you go and look at my testimony, you'll see that I was there, and I was in my office sitting there and literally praying that we would just have 13 patients today, just 13, and I need them to pay this time. And because if I've got 13, I can keep the doors open, I can keep my house,
Wow.
I can, that type of thing. That's where I was. And when you're in that position, that is not the time to be sugarcoating anything. You are in a crisis, and you need to have someone just basically kick you square in the ass and get you going the way you should. And I remember doing a video for Carrie, pointing to my bookshelf behind me and saying, I've got all the answers. I have every last answer that I ever would need, and it's right there on that bookshelf. Problem is I didn't know how to access it. I didn't know how to get into it. I had BJ's books up there that they tell you. I have Fred Barge's books. I have Sigafoose, the wisdom book up there. I've got all these books sitting on that shelf, and different, even some different programs as far as practice management. And I still couldn't access that information because it was just, I don't know, maybe I thought that by buying the book, somehow magically it would just change things. It was a matter of when I started having Sig on that weekly point. And I don't mean to make this a Sigafoose selling point, but this is when it's all really changed, is that I started listening on the weekly calls, the consultation calls. And I put myself in those consultation calls as if I were there. So when he said to do something, I did it. And I'll be damned, all of a sudden the numbers started changing. The office started changing. That's where I started coming in early in the mornings. I was getting in there a couple minutes early just to turn on the lights, and I'm ready to see my first patient. Sometimes the patients would beat me there in the morning. That doesn't happen anymore. I'm there first, and I am here before any of the staff or anything like that. I do my breathing. Like I said, I get my head right so that I'm ready for the day. And that came directly from Sigafoose. The resonating factors is what he identified them as. And those have been a game changer.
It's a little bit of a tangent. It's not as much with the topic that we're talking about, but I think you could offer some good insight. You were saying there how when you started, you're like, oh my God, I need the 13th patient today so that I can keep the doors open. For young guys like me that are coming out this year, next year, whenever this nonsense ends, and maybe they're not in as much a state of financial abundance, what would you say to them to get their mind back to presence and get out of that state? Because when you're in that state, you're going to repel people, right?
Right, exactly. And you're in a state of desperation. Nobody likes someone who's desperate. You reek of desperation when you're in that position. So you need to be in a position where you have to go back to how Sig did it, from the standpoint of when he didn't have anybody in there, he was telling other chiropractors that he was seeing 80 people a day.
Yeah.
And the thing is that wasn't the people coming in through his door. That was the people he saw in his head. He saw it right here, and the thing is that he saw it so clearly and worked on it so much and believed it so much and sold that to not only himself, but to sell it to others. He had to believe it, that all of a sudden there was 80 people sitting there waiting for him to adjust them. Yeah. And he turned that from that to people waiting in line, to get in first thing in the morning. You have to leave the doors locked because people will come in. Just like when we were just starting up here, I had to interrupt, leave here to check someone at the door. The doors are locked here. I'm in the front room, but they're still knocking on the glass. If they see my yellow Jeep out there, they know Doc's here, and they have no problem stopping and seeing what's going on. Yeah. Coming out of this, being a new doc and like that, you've got to let go of the worry in the best ways possible, and each person does that in their own way. But again, diving into your office is going to be the biggest thing you can do to get the worry out of the way. And that means that if you don't have a patient there, that doesn't mean that you can't go through the steps that you have a patient there. Set up on the table, do a full adjustment on the person that you see there on your table, instead of that person being physically there at the time. They're out there, they're waiting for you. They're waiting for you to get your head straight so that you can actually give them what they need. Not even what they want, but what they need. And the quicker you get your head straight, the quicker those people are going to find you. You're going to start to glow. Your space is going to start to vibrate at a different level. You're going to get bright. And as you get bright, whether they see it with their real eyes or with the mind's eye, they see the brightness and they're attracted to it. So even if your personality isn't big, your glow can be. Mahatma Gandhi, personality, very quiet man, but at the same time, he had a heck of a glow. He changed worlds, changed things, and it's that makes the difference. It's that will get you to where you need to be. Get into your office, no one's there, clean the windows, vacuum the floors, wash the baseboards. You are not above, as the doctor, you are not above those mundane things. Those mundane things are the things that keep you open. So the more that you commit yourself to your office being the best it can, the more that it's going to become the best it can. That makes sense?
That last point, and like I'm just playing devil's advocate, but do you not think that delegating those kind of tasks and focusing your energy on the stuff that you are specialized for, because the CA can't adjust and the CA can't maybe go out and get patients in the same way as you can. What are your thoughts?
I agree with that, as long as you have people to adjust. It's when you don't have people to adjust that you still need to be standing there in your office. This is not a time that you have set up for a screening somewhere or a talk somewhere. This is the time that you're in your office and there is no one standing there. So you have a choice at that point. You can either do something or do nothing. And the more that you do nothing, the more that you decide that you're going to scroll Facebook or wander through Instagram instead of focusing on the office, the less people are going to come in. What you're telling the universe is that you're not ready for them, and you need to be telling. Oh, go ahead, please.
So I ask you this, I'm a student now, and we have our spaces in the office for students now that are listening to this who maybe they have 2 first visits and then they have a half-hour break and then maybe they have their 2 adjustments. During that half hour, what should we be doing instead of looking at Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp?
That's wisdom from Sigafoose. Grab a book, grab one of the, and what I like to do is, more than not, especially there's times when I will look at the technique books and like that, but you got to feed the other part too, the philosophy part. So, if you're going to be popping on Facebook, there's video all over YouTube of Sigafoose, of Dr. Barge, of Sid, of Reggie, of Arno, of just keep going with whomever. You can find those guys and you can listen to those guys. You can look at that. If you insist on being on Facebook, go out and check out Sigafoose Weekly. See what people are doing. See what's being written about there. Focus on the chiropractic still. And you might find out that actually that half hour starts to close down to now you only have 15 minutes between the patient and the next one. More than likely, I would bet that that's exactly what's going to happen. And I really wish someone would have shared that with us when I was in school. I really do. And they probably did. We just weren't at a point where we could listen, or we just ignored them, one of the two, but honestly, that's a time you're still in the clinic. So you still should be focused on chiropractic 100%.
I remember speaking to a new grad who was organizing a charla, health talk, and he expected about 10 people to show up, and he was really excited about it. And just on this particular night, nobody came. And he was saying to me like, I thought there was going to be a few. I had myself like really ready. I had this energy that I was going to get a lot of people to sign up tonight. And I said, well, why don't you just do it anyway? Just take the same energy and just put it out there and practice your talk. And fair play to him. He did his talk to an empty room.
Perfect. Good. That's the type of things that I still do, and even now, I still have people show up at a health talk or an event. It may be packed house, but again, it may be 2 or 3 people. And it's hard. I mean, I will admit it is hard to keep your mind straight when you have 2 or 3 people there, when you really wanted all 50 of those chairs full to keep the same energy and such. But it's good practice. It's real good practice to be able to do so, because when you start thinking about it, what happens if you have 1 adjustment versus 50 adjustments for the day? Does that 1 adjustment suffer because, it's just 1 person for the day, or do you give them the best you have as well? And that's where I put my mind, is that, each person that sits there, if it's 1 person, if it's 100 people, each one of those people deserve the best that I can give them.
Awesome. All right, Ken, thank you so much for your advice for relationships, for chiropractic, and for getting ourselves through student clinic.
My pleasure, definitely. And I also offer that if anybody has any problems or any worries or any questions about what I've said, contact me. That's fine. Reach out on Facebook and send me a message. I'm easy to find.
And he's very easy to find if you're a member of Sigafoose Weekly. So jump on that private group, and you'll see Ken up there a lot. And by the way, I should make it clear as well, neither Ken nor I are affiliated with. Well, affiliated. We're affiliated, but we don't get paid by Sigafoose Weekly. We're just really big fans, and it's really helped us. And well, maybe you can talk a bit about that, how much it's helped you, just in general.
Well, that's what I was talking about earlier with the praying for 13 patients a day, and it was when Kerry was just putting out his dad's stuff electronically. It was I saw it pop up on the internet, because what was I doing? Because no one was in the office. Exactly what I've said not to do, and that's why I know not to do it. I was on the internet. I was just sitting there. I was someplace else, literally, and I saw that ad come up. And it's like, okay, let's look at this. You know, I know Sig had passed and made me nostalgic. So I started listening to the podcasts and that Kerry puts out. And he offered, you know, the sign up for the schedule. And again, just as I had to discuss it with my wife as a major purchase, that $30 with a book, same thing when we were talking about, okay, we're talking about a monthly cost here, but in that monthly cost, that will help me get my mind right. And we both knew, because we're both have sat in DEs, dynamic essential meetings, and we both have, you know, been around those people that we knew that if my head was straight, that it would pay off. And so we took the leap. We spent that money and committed to a monthly charge. And it took all of a month or so before we were easily making that. And it was literally just me getting my head straight. It wasn't that I took the SIG manual and we are doing exactly what the SIG manual does as far as procedures and policies and things like that, because those are a little bit older. They're a good framework, but you still have to look at them from how do they apply in your world, but they apply. And that's really what has changed our drive, not our focus, because our focus was there. At least we wanted to be successful. We knew what we wanted out of chiropractic, but we never had the clarity is one word, but it's just feeling like you're enough, you know, feeling like you are in a position that you know enough that you can be successful, that you are not number 2, that you are not number 8, but instead that you have the expertise to be able to be number 1. The only one stopping you from being that number 1 is you. And, you know, it sounds so cliche and everything else, but it really is. You know, it is mindset that is primary, because once you've gotten through that school, or even while you're in school and you're as an intern and you are adjusting there, you given the skills that you need to do. Now you accept that you actually can do them, and you have to accept that you can do them well, and that you're changing people's lives, and that other people need you. And the only way they're going to find out there is by you telling them that you are there. So, you know, I embarrassingly called myself the best kept secret of Battle Creek for many years. Why would I take pride in that? But for whatever reason, I did. I'm not a secret anymore.
Brilliant.
And I've worked very hard to let people know that when they start looking for someone, Dr. Cooper's name comes up every single time.
Brilliant. Ken, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Nice talking to you and spending time with you.
All right. Speak to you on the group.
Sounds good.